Okay, so as a disclaimer, as of the time I'm recording this, I have not finished season 2 of The Rings of Power, but I feel like I've seen enough of it at this point that I feel like I can talk about part of the reason why we book talk girlies love The Rings of Power and why the Lord of the Rings, like the more traditional, I say traditional, I mean asshole fans, they don't like The Rings of Power. We need to talk about the Tumblrification of this show and the Tumblrification of the Second Age. And I say this weirdly as a compliment. So part of the reason why people just don't like the Rings of Power, like the more traditional Lord of the Rings fans, and I would consider myself one of those, except I'm not a fucking racist like some of the rest of them. I'm coming for y'all. Like some people in the Tolkien fandom are just terrible people. But other than that, I would consider myself like reasonably old school. Like I had read the books really, really young. I saw the Lord of the Rings movies, as many as I was allowed to, in theaters when they came out in the early 2000s. I went at opening time to see the extended movies in one sitting. I came out after 13 hours. We saw the movie theater shifts change. That's how long we were at the theater. So I feel like I've seen this fandom in a whole lot of different modes. And I feel like this is the mode where Amazon, in making this show, they really dug deep for some of some strange esoteric lore that even I wasn't necessarily aware of when I was reading the series when I was a young teenager. But also, I think they understand how to make money, and they know that right now the book talk girlies have a chokehold on literature as a business. So when, I guess, the writers of The Rings of Power, they looked at the connection between Galadriel and Sauron, which, as far as I'm aware, Sauron does kill Galadriel's brother. It just doesn't happen the way the show says that it does. The writers of the show were like, what if we book talked like Galadriel, which is a fucking wild thing to do for a TV show that would be watched by a fandom that is so fucking misogynistic. Like, fuck some of y'all, man. And I'm not saying that this is like high art either. Like, shipping Galadriel and Sauron during a time where Galadriel is clearly married and has a daughter who marries Elrond. Like, this is a very strange, unhinged thing to do. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't work, especially not for clearly the audience that this show is for. Like, weirdly enough, The Rings of Power was not for Lord of the Rings people. The Rings of Power is for book talk girlies. I think I'm just lucky in that I am a Lord of the Rings person and a book talk girly. So like there's a Venn diagram and I just happen to be in the middle, and that's why I'm a Lord of the Rings fan who fucking loves this show. And I'm sorry, based on like what I've seen so far, Sauron is fucking unhinged. Like, Sauron is like the Zayd Meadows of the Second Age right now. Like, holy shit. What the hell are you doing, Sauron? Like, going up to like some random lookalike girl, like, oh, you look just like Galadriel. I saw a trailer for the finale. He has like these fucking huge eyes looking at Galadriel. He's looking at her like he wants to eat her. This isn't even from season 2. Like, this isn't even like the moment I was talking about. I couldn't find a picture of Anatar like staring at Galadriel like he wanted to eat her. But look at fucking Halbrand here. Like, he is windblown from the sun. They are stranded on some kind of dinghy. And he's just like, fuck me, girly. Also, to the assholes who are acting like this was just so far out of left field, it is, but it's not really, because the people who like write this show actually do give a shit about the lore. Like, the Sauron Galadriel connection is actually pretty interesting. They have a lot in common. I didn't make this. I found this on the internet, but I do feel like this is an interesting thing in that Galadriel and Sauron have a lot of different things in common, which is probably why in her moment of darkness, her husband is missing. She is essentially alone in the world. She has all of her brothers have died as a result of the War of the Silmarils. The only connections that she has to Beleriand, the world that she lived in after she left Valinor, are the grandson of Fëanor, who was her creepy ass uncle, and Elrond, who was essentially still a child when you think about the great elven lifespans out there. Elrond is a baby, and Gil-galad just doesn't seem like he gives too much of a shit about her. Gil-galad, I think, has been through a lot. I don't think he and Galadriel were going to have as close of a relationship as she and her brothers would. So Galadriel really is alone in the world when she enters this life for death game with Sauron. So Halbrand really was in a position where he could manipulate her really well because he knows what she and him have in common. And that's, the dark romance bread and butter. This was Rings of Power, weirdly, is not for Lord of the Rings fans. It's for the dark romance book talk girlies. And that's why I would recommend that people watch it. This is a good show. I'm not upset about it at all. Also, every time someone new says that this show is good, a fucking racist old school Tolkien fan starts crying. So we would like to see more racists cry out in the world. Thanks.